appreciate everybody's time today. You joining the webinar and also having this opportunity from the Institute of Quarrying and also the Institute of Asphalt Technology to share with you more about the Stamp It Out campaign and what we're trying to achieve. I'm not strictly a health and safety professional, and I've also not been in the construction industry for that long. I've worked for Tarmac for over 5 years now. My interest and my experience, road worker abuse and incursions and the impact this can have is as a family member of somebody who works on the roads. And that's why I'm so passionate about the industry coming together and doing what we can to protect our people. My husband's a road liner and he's the father of our children. He loves working outside on the road and he would not want to work in an office environment. He's doing something he wants to do, but it is an environment that poses an increased risk. Being given this opportunity, I really appreciate, and being in a position where we can hopefully try and make that safer for him, but also for the rest of the industry. In our industry, we financially incentivise people to work antisocial hours, and we do this because it suits our end customer, the road user, by minimising disruption. Quite rightly, we want to do that, and we want to improve the experience for everybody using our roads. But this does pose an increased risk. So as an industry, we have a responsibility, I believe, to tackle that risk and do what we can to protect our people from road worker abuse and incursions. So what is Stamp It Out? Stamp It Out is the campaign that the industry task force that I'm co-lead of has put together to tackle the issues of road worker abuse and incursions. And the way we plan to do this is by bringing the industry together to improve the conditions for all of our people working on the roads, and also by creating a step change in perception. And that's both with the public, but also internally and for our road workers. It happens so frequently, it can feel like it's part of the job, but it absolutely isn't. And that's something that we want to change going forward. So we've seen the successes that other key workers have had and other sectors such as healthcare and the NHS with their zero tolerance campaign, which has made people reconsider the way they interact with people. You have got some contributing factors between hospitals, between people stuck in traffic jams and in roadworks. They can be environments that create stress, that can be confusing for people, and that people can feel under pressure that may make them behave in ways that they perhaps wouldn't do normally. Just taking inspiration from the successes we've seen with the NHS with their zero tolerance campaigns, we want to look at that as an industry and achieve similar successes with that step change in perception across the construction industry and the wider sector as well. You can see here that we've got some of the members of our task force here. I won't read them all out, but we're very keen to include as many people as possible. So if you do feel that your organisation would like to be involved in the Stamp It Out campaign, then please get in touch. I'll share my contact details afterwards. We'll tell you more about how you can be involved and what you can do. So key to this is we're trying to involve as much of the industry as possible, so tier 1s, 2s and 3 contractors across the strategic road network and the local authorities and also the utility sector. And we are aware that it can be people working in local authorities, in utilities, and also in those tier 2 and tier 3 contractors who may be more likely to be experiencing this, on a more frequent basis and be on the sharp end. Roadwork abuse and incursions are nothing new, but unfortunately they appear to be becoming more common. And despite all of the individual efforts, our companies are tackling these issues independently, but we're not seeing the impact in numbers that we'd like to have. And unfortunately, the frequency is increasing and also the severity of the incidences we're having doesn't seem to be reducing either. Our road workers deserve respect. Our people working on the roads keep Great Britain moving. Without them, we wouldn't be able to get the critical supplies we need to our hospitals. We wouldn't be able to supply goods to keep other industries going and also to allow us to make the changes we've had to during the COVID pandemic as well and support us towards working from home and also reducing the journeys we're individually making in order to stop the spread of COVID-19. We spoke about the problem of perception, and this is something that we want to understand more about. So we will be launching a perception survey across the industry to look at what goes through people's heads when they get behind the wheel of a vehicle and why people's behaviours can change so drastically. So look out for that, and if you can, please share your honest responses to those questions as well. The question that I'd like us all to consider is how often do we stop and really appreciate the contributions our road workers make to our daily lives? So a real positive that has come out of the current COVID-19 crisis is that our people have been given the recognition that they've long deserved, and our road workers are now recognised as key workers. This is long overdue, but it is a step in the right direction. You can see here we've got a couple of letters from Highways England, from some of our local authorities as well, that enabled our workers to carry on working through the national lockdown that we saw earlier in the year. This was a real positive, and it's something that we want to build on and take forward to ensure that our road workers' rights continue to be recognised, and also that we extend further protection to them in legislation and align the rights of key workers across all sectors, so that if instances of abuse or assault occur to a road worker, the prosecution and the penalties will be aligned to that of other key workers such as nurses, ambulance drivers and police officers. I feel this is only fair with the contribution that our teams make to the country. We all know this is a problem. We see it in our daily lives. We perhaps experience it as we're travelling to and from work, and even nipping to the shops. You can see cars pulling up at road closures. You can see conversations, altercations, and people become more agitated when they feel that they're being stopped from doing something that they'd usually do. We see this in the press, and you can see here some of the examples of stories, people being attacked by axe-wielding criminals. It's a very attention-grabbing headline, very serious incident, but just the tip of the iceberg. We know these are much more wide-ranging, and even at the lower end of the scale, or perhaps something that may seem less newsworthy, those altercations, those repeated incidents of verbal abuse can have a very real and long-lasting impact on our workers' psychological health, and that expands further than their working lives. It goes into their home lives, and it can also have an impact on their families as well. So many people can be affected by this, and that's why it's so important that we tackle it and we do what we can as an industry to keep our people safe. So we've got a couple of other instances in here that you may have seen more recently in the news. One in Sheffield, where one of our workers was threatened with a machete and works were actually stopped as a result of that. That happened quite recently in August. And we've also can see on here as well that council workers do feel that there's an increase in abuse as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a very current, the need is growing. We need to get on top of this. There's positives though as well. So we have an example here from our infrastructure business from the A34 underpass, and this is where they've been working very closely with the police there to actually put in preventative measures such as having speed checks on the route, and the police have been fantastic, supported the team to actually secure prosecutions as well. Why are prosecutions so important? Because they act as a deterrent, and it gets people to actually recognise that there will be consequences. There are actions such as speeding through roadworks, such as disregarding the signage and also disregarding the lives and safety of our people that we have working in those environments. It's really positive to see we're getting those prosecutions, that we're having that support from the local police forces, and also that the press are picking up on this. Unfortunately, we see these instances in our stats as well as in the press. So we've got a small kind of snapshot here to get a taste of what the scale and the size of the problem is. So as we were starting to talk about this as this task force, and had those initial conversations of actually bringing a few of our organisations together to look at this as a collective, we decided to look at the size of the problem. And we've got the stats here from 2017 to August 2020, so roughly 2.5 year period. And the numbers here are just from 8 companies. So not the whole of the industry at all, from 8 companies, and some of these nationally, but of those 8 companies, some of those were at a Highways England area level. So very much the tip of the iceberg here. What it does tell you though is that the severity cannot be underestimated. You can see on there that in amongst those attacks, we've got a number of instances of our workers being threatened with violence, but also threatened with violence using weapons. These weapons included firearms, crossbows, machetes, and also dangerous animals. Incredibly scary incidents for anyone to be involved in, and not something that any of us would tolerate in our workplace either. And we don't believe our people should have to tolerate it. The sorts of things as well that we might be more familiar of, like having objects thrown. It's not acceptable, it's not okay, and we want to change that. You can see on there we have 5 instances of people being intentionally hit by a moving vehicle. This is people deliberately trying to run our workers over whilst they go about their day-to-day activities. There's only going to be one winner if you put a person against a vehicle. We've got 3 incidences that came through our stats of people being shot at with firearms, and also, and this was something I perhaps hadn't anticipated seeing, 2 incidences of sexual assaults. And those sexual assaults had a big impact on the people involved in them and made them feel that they weren't safe to work in those environments. And that's male and female. We talk quite often as an industry about the barriers that we have in attracting people to want to work in this industry. It doesn't take long when you look at these sorts of numbers and the severity of the incidents that are happening to understand perhaps why some people wouldn't want to. We've looked at the numbers and we've looked at the newspaper headlines, but it is the people behind these statistics that really matter and the impact that it has on those individuals and, as we said before, on their families. This is a snapshot of an incident that happened and was reported on our Safety Online system. So I'll just pick out the key points on here. It does link back to one of the newspaper headlines we saw earlier with our person that was threatened with a machete in Sheffield, which resulted in the works being stopped. So a bit more information about the context of this. It was on the Sheffield PFI scheme. It's a scheme that Tarmac work as a subcontractor on and Amy are principal contractors. It was in an area considered relatively safe. The works were being carried out at night to reduce disturbance to local residents. You can see from the text that's on the screen that a member of the public assaulted one of our supervisors. That member of the public had been driving erratically and had nearly ran over another member of the public prior to this incident happening. They struck one of our supervisors and knocked them to the ground, causing an injury to our supervisor's head. And then the member of the public that had nearly been run over by them came to intervene, and this resulted in the member of the public who had just injured one of our workers returning to their vehicle and retrieving a large knife that he then proceeded to chase the other member of the public who had been intervening in the incident down the side road with. After that, he came back and then proceeded to threaten our workers with the machete, which is obviously a very traumatic experience for everybody involved. The police were called and the operative was left very shaken from the incident. As a result of that experience, our supervisor has suffered anxiety and did not feel safe returning to work. So we're supporting them and we're supporting their family with that. But it really does underline the very real impact that these instances can have on our workers' mental health and the lasting impact that can have. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to think that actually next time you're on a similar job, working in a similar area, you're going to have those memories. That experience in your mind is going to be very fresh and those perhaps anxious feelings may resurface. So we'll continue to support the families, but we want to look at what else we can do as well to stop this happening. So what does this look like on a contract basis? So this is an example from the Birmingham PFI, which is another Amy scheme, and they've kindly provided their numbers to the working group, and they are key to the activities we've been involved in. The reason we're using this is because it gives a snapshot over 10 years. So from 2010 up to 2020, what does this look like? You can see straight away the sheer number of instances that are happening. So we've got 483 TM breaches, that's incursions without confrontation, 214 verbal instances of verbal abuse or aggression. Of these, 14 were racially motivated. And then there's also 30 carjackings of thefts and 5 incidents of road workers being shot at with firearms. Again, we cannot underestimate the scale and the seriousness of the problem. Looking at 10 years worth of data from one contract, we can see the trends over time, and we can see that across all of the measures we have here, which are threats of violence or threatening with a weapon, a violent incident or assault, or instances of objects or liquids being thrown at operatives, all of these are increasing. The data here shows that despite the individual efforts that have been made by Amy and by others working on that contract, we haven't been able to reduce these instances. There may be other contributing factors here, such as an increase in reporting, which is positive. We want to encourage that, but you can see that there's more to do. And it does appear as if these instances are increasing. The data there for 2020 is incomplete. So I think this is a snapshot that was taken. We had these kind of initial conversations back in June, July this year. So how does the task force propose that we tackle this? That's through the 3Es. And they are engineering, enforcement and education. So we have a number of work streams, lots of very experienced, skilled professionals contributing their time to look at how we can target some of the root causes of the risks that we face. In terms of engineering, that means applying the hierarchy of controls and removing our people from the risk as much as possible. As part of the work streams we've got looking at the engineering side, we are doing bow tie risk modelling to understand the contributing factors and where there is gaps between our systems and the incidents that are happening. And we are also looking at new technology that's available to us, trialling that, and also looking across our different organisations at how the technology that we're implementing interacts together. Because as we know, there's many problems as technology can help us to fix. We're all using different things. It can also introduce new elements of risk too. The second part of this is enforcement, and this is where the petition comes in. This is perhaps the bit which is most prevalent to people, most visible at the moment. So we're petitioning the government for tougher penalties and getting that alignment between road workers and other key workers. If you do come across the link to that petition, please sign up for it, please share it, and please make lots of noise about it, get people on board. In order to get that petition read in Parliament and for it to be considered for debate, we need to get to 100,000 signatures before March. The petition's been live for about 3 weeks and we're up to about 5,500. So we absolutely need everybody's support to keep pushing this forward and to get us to that 100,000 signatures. How else can we target enforcement? We can look at how we're reporting these incidences across the industry, potentially having a common platform for that links into AIR's web, but also notifies the enforcement agencies such as the police and traffic officers as well. So that's something that we're working on. And it's through that visibility, through those penalties being applied, that we can really raise awareness of this, not only with our own teams, but with the travelling public as well, with the wider public. And lastly, we've got education. So individually, our organisations invest in conflict resolution training, but currently there's no common standard for this across the industry. So the working group is looking to develop an accredited form of conflict resolution training that can give us a common basis for all of the different organisations working across our sites. As well as that piece around changing the perception and is key to this as well, internally and externally, and that will be supported through the media campaign. So how do these work streams come together? How are we going to protect our people through Stamp It Out? Firstly, by uniting the industry, and really appreciate the Institute of Quarry and the Institute of Asphalt Technology support today, and we'd love you to carry on with us on this journey. And anybody else who's watching who wants to be involved, please get in touch. Secondly, by raising public awareness, and this will be through a radio campaign, through social media, through the national press, and also by gaining support from other influencers. At the moment, we're thrilled to have Dr. Andrew Sharman supporting us. He's going to be doing some more in the press as well to really help us to get that message out to people. So Dr. Andrew Sharman, for those who don't know, is a health and safety influencer and he's recently handed over the reins as president of IOSH. So thirdly, we're looking to change the law, and we've spoke about what we want to do in terms of the petition and aligning protection for all key workers. We'll also be engaging with HSE and also the Department for Transport, Highways England, Transport for Scotland, Wales and Ireland, and also the police and traffic officers, so that we can increase the penalties for abuse and incursions and also secure more convictions for this. Next, we've got our workplace education, our workforce education. As this is through developing industry best practices that's suited across all the different networks we work on and across the different sectors. Toolbox talks, developing that reporting app, and also through these perception surveys so we can really understand what people are thinking when they're in those environments and having those interactions with our colleagues working out on site. Next, we've got conflict resolution training and getting to that common industry standard. And then we'll be having a Respect Our Road Workers Week in June as well. This will be where we're launching the materials that we have and really ramping up that coverage in the national press. So summing it up, what are the takeaways from this webinar? I'm sure we'll all agree our road workers deserve respect. These skilled people making big sacrifices in terms of their personal lives, often working antisocial hours, nights, at the weekend to enable the country to keep moving and for us all to go about our daily lives in the way that we like to. It's fantastic to see that they've been the vital role they play in keeping Britain moving has been recognised throughout this pandemic, but we need to build on that now and get their rights protected. Key to this is going to be that step change in public perception, and that's something that all of us in the industry can play our part in doing, considering how we behave inside work but also outside work when we're faced with road closures, and starting to have those conversations and perhaps even challenge some of our family members, our friends, if we see them behaving in a way that we don't think's quite right. So please have those conversations with people and let them know about the impact that abuse and incursions can have on people and their families. It is the people behind these numbers that matter, and you can make a difference to them by signing the petition. So how you can make a difference, there's links here to the petition. Please do sign and share it. We've also put together a poster with a QR code that we'd love you to put up in your canteens, in your mess rooms, put them in your site files and get it out to the people on site, not only for them to sign up to the petition, but also to let them know that we recognise this is a problem and we are working on it. We want to protect them. So let them know we're thinking about them too. Events we've got coming up. We have an industry task force webinar on the 10th of February. So if you'd like an update on where we've got to in terms of developing things like the app and the common conflict resolution training, please join that. And hopefully we'll have a few more signatures on there as well by then. We have the industry roundtable that's going to take place at the Institute of Directors on the 21st of April. And this is going to be with representatives from the Department for Transport, from the HSE, and also from industry leaders such as Tarmac, Balfour Beatty, Thames Water, possibly Hanson Simon.
Yes. Yeah.
Brilliant. And that is really to let that executive level have those conversations about some of the contributing factors that create these added elements of risk. It will be under Chatham House rules, so it won't be filmed, but those key messages that come out of that discussion, will be shared across the industry. So very keen to see what comes out of that. And then Respect Our Road Workers Week in June. Hopefully you'll hear lots more about that as well. That's when we'll be launching the supporting materials. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate the time today, and I'd love to speak to any of you following this as well. So do get in touch if you're interested in finding out more.